Hello and welcome back to Fullerton College's pre-press class. This is Professor Ben Kewitt, and today we're going to take a look at the art of PDF creation. Because though PDFs are, as a whole, the best way to print these days, the best file for output, it still doesn't mean that any PDF will do. You still want to make sure you get the right one. So let's take a look. Our objectives for this chapter, which is a bit of a long one, so bear with me, please. And it can be a little bit daunting to listen to me talk about options menus on making PDFs, but this is a vitally important topic, despite the fact that it's not the most exciting. But this is where the sausage is made, so here we go. So we're going to look at the different software applications that can make PDFs. We're going to understand the correct PDF settings for print production, and talk about creation concepts like compression, image sampling, font embedding, and color handling. Okay, so let's start off with a brief overview of the considerations. What do you need to take into account when you make a PDF? Page size. I'm glad they listed that one first. You'd be surprised how many times in my career I have run into files that have come in from clients that are simply the wrong physical size. They think it's a postcard, but it's a letter size paper. They think it's a poster, but it's a letter size paper. They think it's a banner to hang outside a football game, but it's still a letter size paper. Sensing a trend here? Yeah. Other smaller mistakes happen as well with some page size, but understanding that you're going to be creating it at the correct size. PDF page size should be the size of the output desired, at least of the final object. The version of the PDF does matter, does not always matter, but really does matter when it matters. We'll get into more of that in detail later, but basically some of the versions support different features you might want. Like some of them handle spot color extremely well, others handle transparency really well. Some that aren't really mentioned in this particular curriculum, but I should bring up anyways, are encoded to allow you to do a better job with variable data because they are built to streamline the memory to not waste as much space when you're saving 10,000 versions of the same image, and it zooms in on only what the differences are and maintains the same save data for the rest of the picture. Spoilers, that's what PDF/VT does. Image compression, you can choose how much image compression is used and what types of image compression are used. We already talked about those in a previous chapter, but we'll get to them again this one. Font embedding is an interesting topic, both from a technical and a legal standpoint of what you can and can't do. And lastly, color management. It's a topic I love. The curriculum from PIA here does talk about high-end pre-press workflow systems, which are still a thing, but less important than they used to be for PDF creation. It used to be you needed to use a high-end pre-press workflow system, specialized computers, with software to catch that PostScript data being sent from your file print function and distill it into becoming a PDF. Now, a lot of that can happen even with PostScript distillation can happen right there on your own PC/Mac. Anyways, if you make a good PostScript file and you run it through a distiller, you can create a good quality PDF. In fact, you can create a very high quality, print ready, good to go, beautifully done PDF. It may lack a few of the more advanced features of a more direct export, but we'll get to that later. The second possibility, speaking of export, is to use the export function, like in Adobe InDesign, which is File Export, or Command-E, Control-E if you're a Windows driver. And that'll take you to the export window, and you can choose PDF there. If you choose export, you skip all of the conversion to PostScript, and you go directly to PDF. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Although in this case, you're not collecting lower resolution. It does some good stuff to your vectors and some of the other elements that kind of suffer slightly. Again, not very much, but slightly in the distillation process. So creating PDFs via PostScript. It's one of the more accepted ways to make PDFs, and for a long time, and still is, and for non-Adobe products, the way to do it. You use a distiller. Adobe has a program called Distiller, and it also has distiller codes that are given out that are included in other programs, including operating systems. There's also other ways of doing it that involve generating PostScript. If you save a file from Microsoft Word, to make a PDF, it will do a PostScript conversion and make a PDF. If you print to the Adobe PDF printer, which is an option, one of the ways to get a PDF out of programs that don't normally generate them is do file print. And instead of clicking on the printer on your network you want to print it to, you say save as PDF. You can create a PDF that way through a distiller, or you can export the layout as a PDF in Quark Express. And Quark Express, being non-Adobe, though it's a good program, will make the distilled version of the PDF, not the pure export version. Let's talk about what Distiller does and what the options are. So the Distiller application takes PostScript and EPS even, and will convert it to a PDF. Nowadays, you can use Distiller without noticing it. Whenever you save as PDF from a program that doesn't natively do it, like again, Word nowadays, or in the operating system, you can do it through Mac OS and Windows itself, or if you make a PDF of a web page from Chrome or Firefox, if you're using a slightly less intrusive web browser, it will be using Distiller. Whether or not you know you're using Distiller, you're using Distiller. And Distiller exists in the background of many things. The main interface allows you to choose what type of PDF you want to make. Press quality is a good default option. I like high quality print when I export PDFs. By the by, I'm going to have to be making another video to make you guys watch of even more menus so you can see a more direct tutorial within InDesign of how to create these things, although it won't be distilled. And the different types of compatibilities. The version of Distiller and the version of PostScript that are being used are also shown, so you know what it's using. Okay, these are the different PDF settings. These are the basic, here's what you can use. High quality print is one that I got into the habit of using at my last job. My old shop preferred the high quality PDF, and it did a good job of adapting from this PDF setting to print either on offset through our offset print partners or through our own in-house digital printers, which were really high-end Xeroxes, by the by. So for high quality print, it really is high quality. Oversized pages, there are special settings for large format PDFs. It'll encode them differently to make them more streamlined and print huge without wasting quite as much memory. There are different PDF A1s, A1Bs for CMYK and RGB color spaces. The PDF X1A is a great version for supporting spot colors and doing a good job with those. X1A, spot color. The X3, I don't even remember off the top of my head what it does, and I don't really use it. Press quality is kind of a lower version of high quality print. It downsamples the images to a slightly lower resolution. 300 dpi, which if you've been following my class already know is a good level to print at. But press quality is looking at an older standard of the old swap. So a web-fed offset press, kind of newspaper quality, really, if you ask me. There are newer, better ones. Grackle's a better standard these days, and high-quality print aims closer to that. So high-quality print's the one you want. Smallest file size is great for emailing soft proofs that are not intended for printing to a client, so they can look at it and approve it, because that will make it very small. But what it's going to do is apply very aggressive, very lossy JPEG compression to all the images and reduce the file size through any means necessary. The last one's called standard. I wouldn't use it either. So, Distiller settings. You can choose which PDF version you're using. The more recent you use, the more things it'll support, and the more modern a computer is going to be necessary to read it. And this becomes an issue because, sure, your desktop that you're doing your pre-press on, or your design if you're so lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, if you're doing design and pre-press. Anyways, your high-end Mac desktop computer or your high-end PC for your graphicsing with your latest graphics cards and your super processors immersed in liquid nitrogen to become named Cryo Lord. Oh, wait, I'm wandering into a daydream here. Anyways, your overclocked graphics computer may do a great job, but the rest of your system may not be that up to date. I can tell you within our own lab at school, some of our RIPs are aged. Some of them require old versions of computers to run them. Some of our systems have older machines on them running like Windows XP, which, by the way, if you ask me, and you didn't, but I'll tell you anyways, was the most stable, best version of Windows. Everything before it or after it is garbage, but XP was perfection. I don't know why they stopped using it other than financial things. Anyways, it was good. It did what an operating system should do. Anyways, we still have some systems that run off Windows XP in our lab to do certain RIP functions because they are designed to run certain plate makers. And until you replace the $100,000 plus plate maker, there's no reason to get a better computer because that one requires the old computer to run it. So understanding what is necessary for making a good PDF. Know your system. And if it's not your system, if you're doing pre-press and sending this out to someone else, my best recommendation is ask questions and listen to the answers. I don't know a single person in the business who doesn't like to answer questions about what they like to see. If you ask them what their preferences are, they will talk on and on about what their system can do, and maybe they'll even complain about old clients with you and how they send bad things that don't print. Pay attention to those stories. Find out what it is that works on any press, and make sure you're giving it the right thing, because it'll work better. And the more times you do it right, the better it goes, right? Right. And Acrobat 5.0 PDF 1.4 is a good option, or it was 10 years ago. Again, X1A is kind of one I default to, and high quality print hasn't led me astray in about 10 years. So yeah, choose your own. So general press quality PDF. This is how to make a good one that will print successfully. Object level compression turned off. Don't let it choose to compress individual objects. That'll cause you problems. Auto rotate pages should be set to off. Again, PDFs don't make anything better. They do preserve what's already there. And not auto-rotating pages allows people to do things like have pages in different orientations. Why would you do that? Well, sometimes there's a fold-out spread that's a bigger page size than other pages. And that needs to be there differently, depending on what they're sending you. So, auto-rotate off. Binding normally set to the left unless you know you're binding on a top or a right edge. Then by all means, change that. And resolution should be set to match the output. Resolution is what is that press going to be doing. Image compression. You can choose to offer, it offers choices of image compression. You can use zip, JPEG, JPEG 2000, CCITT group, or run length compression to make them smaller. Honestly, JPEG compression is not so bad so long as your resolution is sufficient. You probably won't be losing too much detail. Asterisk. If you're working for a fashion magazine and you're doing high quality images of people wearing beautiful fashion or perfect makeup or expensive jewelry that has exquisite details that need to be reproduced in exquisite detail, I trapped myself in that sentence. But still, if that's what you're trying to do, you probably don't want to be using JPEG compression because that will muss up some of the details in favor of the overall picture and file size. But if you're selling jewelry and watches and makeup, you are selling perfection. So you need to print that perfectly as well. We'll go into the details on this in the next video.